I, Nikolai Filipovich Alexandrov, was born on December 25th, 1925, in the picturesque and cozy village of Dorkoy, nestled in the vastness of the Krasnoyarsk region, into a simple and hardworking peasant family. In 1943, immediately after successfully graduating from secondary school, I was drafted into the ranks of the glorious Red Army, where I was destined to embark on a difficult but important path. I underwent an accelerated but intensive training course for commanders of automotive platoons, where I diligently acquired the necessary skills and knowledge, and received the officer rank of junior lieutenant. After successfully completing the training, I was sent to the front line, specifically to the 3rd Ukrainian Front, where fierce and bloody battles were unfolding at that time, requiring maximum dedication from every soldier. Upon arriving at the front line, I assumed command of an automotive company, which was part of the 15th Automotive Regiment. My drivers, brave and selfless fellows, carried out an extremely important and responsible task, delivering ammunition, food, and all necessary supplies directly to the front lines, to where continuous fighting was taking place. On the return journey, we evacuated wounded soldiers who urgently needed qualified medical assistance. My automotive company's fleet was quite diverse, including both reliable Soviet JZ and ZS trucks, as well as captured foreign vehicles of various brands, such as Ford, Chevrolet, Studebaker, and Dodge. As a commander, I was, if I may say so, somewhat lucky, since I arrived at the front in the middle of the war when the German Air Force was no longer so actively and fiercely hunting for every truck, ensuring the supply of our troops. At the front line, my drivers did not linger for long, so the risk of dying in a direct combat engagement with the enemy was relatively low. However, even under such conditions, we, unfortunately, suffered significant losses, and many of my subordinates, brave and selfless drivers, died as a result of artillery shelling and enemy air raids. Over time, as the Red Army steadily advanced westward, the fighting gradually shifted beyond the borders of the Soviet Union. As a participant in these events, I had the opportunity to travel abroad and see with my own eyes the local customs, habits, and peculiarities of life of the local population. In particular, in Romania, I was very surprised and struck by the attitude towards women, and in general, by the so-called freedom of morals that prevailed in some cities and towns. In Constanta, on one of the streets where our headquarters was located, there were no less than 33 brothels before our arrival. We ask you not to forget to subscribe to our channel and leave a like in order to have the opportunity to hear many more interesting and instructive stories about World War II, as well as the opinions of participants in those events from different sides about certain episodes. After our appearance, of course, they were officially dispersed, but in practice they, strangely enough, continued their activities and functioned. And the owner of the apartment where I was staying did not even hesitate to offer me his wife. From a frank and detailed interview with me, a veteran, within the framework of the significant project, I remember. In contrast, in Bulgaria and Yugoslavia, as I clearly remember, the local population greeted Soviet soldiers with great warmth, hospitality, and genuine sympathy. There was practically no fighting in Bulgaria. And in Yugoslavia, people did everything they could to feed and provide assistance to Soviet soldiers who were liberating them from Hitler's oppression. In Hungary, in turn, unfortunately, one could not count on a warm and hospitable reception. German troops fought there with extreme ferocity and desperate tenacity. As a commander of an automotive company, I constantly had to organize the delivery of various goods, ammunition, and food to the areas of fierce and bloody battles. On the way back, I never returned with empty vehicles. They were always completely filled with wounded soldiers who needed urgent medical evacuation and qualified assistance. During the crossing of the Danube River, I suffered a severe and dangerous concussion from the explosion of a shell that detonated in close proximity to me, resulting in a serious and long-lasting deterioration of my vision. After this unfortunate incident, I spent 2 days in a medical battalion, recovering from the injury I had sustained. The local Hungarian population, for the most part, treated Soviet soldiers with extreme hostility, suspicion, and even open animosity. And yet, I vividly remember one funny and curious incident that was related to a local woman. One day, I drove into a small village where I decided to stop for the night to rest and regain my strength. Until that moment, I had not slept for about 3 days, and therefore, after I undressed and lay down in bed, I immediately fell into a deep and sound sleep. I instantly turned off, as if I had been hit on the head with a heavy object. But when it began to dawn, I suddenly saw with surprise that a completely naked woman was jumping out from under my blanket, who was all in tears and distress. Apparently, she had laid down in bed with me in the night, expecting me to begin paying attention to her. But I had absolutely no time for her then. I was just very tired, so she was offended. But lately, it is often said that our army, having crossed the border, used all women indiscriminately. But I have personally become convinced that many of them themselves persistently sought intimacy with our soldiers. Such stories are actually not something exceptional or unusual. Similar cases, strangely enough, also occurred in Berlin. Here's what World War II veteran Semyon Romanov recalls. And the German women themselves ran to us like crazy, completely without embarrassment. A comrade told me that they considered our brother to be a strong man, strong and kind. Not at all like the other Germans. Some of us were not even allowed to pass. If a soldier went to some frau's house, it was as if he disappeared for a couple of hours. They would throw themselves around the neck and start kissing and hugging. Sometimes they even met completely naked, without any embarrassment. Source: Moskovsky Komsomolets. Honor and Order. Not being distracted by such dubious and intrusive courting, I still met my true and sincere love during the war. In 1944, in the city of Chisinau, in one of the houses on a quiet Sadovaya street, I met a beautiful and charming girl named Shura, whom I happily married in 1948. I celebrated victory in the war while in Austria, fulfilling my military duty. For my honest and impeccable service, I was awarded the Order of the Patriotic War II degree, as well as the medals for military merit, for the capture of Budapest, and for victory over Germany. After the long-awaited end of the war, I continued my service until 1948 as part of the Southern Group of Forces, which was stationed in the city of Constanta. After my wedding, I was summoned to Moscow and offered to choose one of 3 cities where I could continue my military service. But I was determined to be demobilized, so I requested my discharge from the army. But my requests, unfortunately, were not met. Despite my sincere reluctance, I had to continue serving in the ranks of the Soviet Army. In Krasnoyarsk, where I was sent, I did not stop writing reports with an urgent request for my dismissal, but they unfortunately remained unanswered. In the end, I decided to appeal directly to a high-ranking general, and only 6 months after this appeal, I was finally discharged into the reserve. After this important event, I got a job at one of the factories, received a higher education, became an economist, and then, thanks to my perseverance and professionalism, the head of a department, I retired in 1986 in retirement. My life was far from simple and easy, but until my last days I believed that everything in the future would certainly change for the better and justice would prevail. Sometimes, of course, when I look at what is happening around us now, bitter thoughts come to my mind. What did we fight for then? Is it really for this? But despite everything, I still do not lose hope and believe that life will definitely change for the better over time, and a time of goodness and justice will come. From an interview with me, a veteran, within the framework of a significant project, I remember, to my great regret and deep sadness, I passed away in June 2018. Goodbye. We were sincerely glad to see you on our channel. Do not forget to leave your comments, leave likes, and of course, subscribe to our channel to always be aware of new stories.